Hello, seventh graders. It's me, Mr. Piercy, and I want to share with you today's plan for learning. You will begin on the ISB main library page, or it might be this one, either of those two. We'll be sharing the link with you very shortly. If it's this page, you'll go down to seventh grade and you'll choose Social Studies Past and Present. But more than likely, we'll be able to give you this link. And today would be Class 1, Thursday and Friday. Okay, so the first thing you'll do is you'll watch the Back to the Future from video. That's this one right here. It's just 2 minutes long. It just gives you an idea of where we're going. And then the second video we'd like you to watch is this one, where you'll have an overview of the project. Ms. Vogt will talk to you about what exactly it is you're doing today and where the project is going to go in the future. Please do not think that we want you to build your models or do any of this more constructing, creative stuff, project stuff. It's going to be step by step over the next few weeks, okay? So just do today's lesson, day one, all right? Third, review and complete the inquiry process document in Google Classroom. So you'll be invited to that document, and I'll show you right now an example. And this is here if you want to look at it as well, an example. So if after I've gone through this you have questions, know that you can ask Ms. Vogt and I as well. It might help to look at this example. So let me magnify this, if I'm given the opportunity. Are you ready for another joke? No, I won't. Okay, so come on now. Patience. All we need is just a little. Okay. So here is the example. Okay, so what you get to do today is you're going to be picking 2 objects, maybe 3. All right, you do not need to choose from this list, but as we highlighted here, the object needs to be a physical object that can be found in your home, including your garage and garden. All right, so on our when we first picked objects, some of you chose things like, let me see, the medical system. Okay, that's a hard thing to grasp, and we want you to have an object, an actual object. So here are a bunch of examples. Again, you don't have to pick from this list, but these are several of the items that people studied already that they put on an assignment 2 assignments ago. All right, so we ask you to list your 2 objects. So for the sake of this example, pick out a big hint. You'll be wanting to think about, will there be information on your topic, okay, on your object? And that's something you're really going to want to have, an object that is going to lend itself to learn a lot about. So for this example, we know these 2 would, and please don't copy the ideas that we're putting here, so nobody pick pen and bicycle. But for example, we would have object 1 would be pen, object 2 would be bicycle, and if we wanted to pick a third one, we'd list it there. We hope you'll do that. And then consider the following questions to help narrow your choices. So what do you already know about the object? Before you do any research, what do you already know? So for the pen, here are a few ideas of things we knew about the pen. I won't read those to you. And then bicycle, the things that we already know about the bicycle. Okay, so beginning with what we know. And then we do the same thing for the optional or the third one. And then briefly explore your objects in either Google and or the Encyclopedia Britannica. We'd really recommend you'd go to Encyclopedia Britannica, and you'll be able to click on that link and should be able to go right to it. It's more of a trustworthy source. It's written for children, for students to be able to understand. Definitely recommend it before going just straight out to Google, okay? So explore for a few minutes. This could be a rabbit hole and you could go into it for hours, but just take a few minutes to learn a little bit about your objects. And so what we found out, we didn't type it anywhere. We did a little research. We found out about it, and we had some questions we were wondering. But before we get into that, thinking about what will hold our interest over a period of several weeks. We want to know from you, like, what is it about those objects that you picked? Why you think that you're going to be interested in that for several weeks. So for example, the pen, we wrote, the pen is a simple piece of technology that's been around for a long time. I don't think the pen's going to become out of date. So that's one convincing reason why we might want to stick with the pen for weeks. And then the bicycle, you can read what we wrote for that. And then number 5, what do you want to learn about the objects? What questions do you have? Think about questions that relate to the past, present, and future. And we'd really like it if you have a mix of those questions, so please don't have all your questions just about the past, though that will be helpful to be thinking about questions from the past that will have an effect on the present item and then the future of that object. All right, there's no limit. No limits. There's no limits to the amount of questions you may wonder. So we just have a few for the pen. For example, what did one of the first pens look like? How did the first pen work? How will the pen develop further? Hopefully you have a more extensive list, but this should be things that you really want to know, all right? And then you might notice the flavor of these questions is such that they really lend themselves to more than just one-word responses. I know we've talked about that in the past, especially like when we did the interviews. Having a question like, will the pen be useful in the future? That would be a simple yes or no, or maybe even possibly. So think about when you're doing your questions, like what will really, how do you make those open questions that will really, you'll be really able to find a lot of information about? Okay, so we would have done the same for our bicycle, the questions we were wondering, and then for our third object. And then at the very end, if you chose to do 3 objects, if you didn't, if you just had 2 objects, you can just leave it like that. But if you have a third object, narrow it down after now thinking it through. What would be your favorite 2? Maybe that's your first and third, all right? And then when you're finished with this, if you could please remember to turn it in. And that's the assignment, okay? So going back, so you're watching the Back to the Future fun little 2-minute video. You're learning a little bit more about where we're heading with this project. Ms. Vogt will share all about that. And then you're completing this Google Doc. Again, if you have questions, please let us know. Thanks.